This video is going to be a look at what I believe the Detroit Lions must do in order to fix or at least address some of their defensive issues that really came to the forefront in their Week 7 loss to the Ravens. They're fantastic. 5-1 start came to a shocking halt to a lot of us, myself included, in terms of how the defense performed or didn't. As Lamar Jackson and the Ravens rolled up 500 yards of offense, the run game was a really shocking piece, what the Ravens were able to generate. I'm going to focus on the Lions' lack of pass rush and then their coverage options to the exclusion of the run game in this video, because I do believe that the Lions personnel, the way they're currently deployed, they have the ability to stop the run. They've showed that. I think this is still a team capable of playing very good defense in the NFL across multiple weeks, but the one glaring issue, in my opinion, is their ability to generate pass rush and combine that with coverage balance. Meaning, in order to generate pass rush, do they have to bring so many people, just sheer mathematics here, to expose themselves on the back end, particularly in a week like last week where Jerry Jacobs didn't play, and by the time the third, fourth possession came around and the Lions started blitzing more, they opened themselves up more because the earlier coverage options scheme wasn't working. Let's look at the Lions' statistical output with the pass rush so far. Yes, they have 15 sacks and 6 interceptions. The 15 sacks is a little less than halfway through the league in terms of, top to bottom. So they're about middle of the pack. 6 interceptions is good. But the problem is 12 of those 15 sacks came in the Lions' back-to-back wins over the Falcons and Packers in weeks 3 and 4. So in their other 5 games, they only have 3 sacks generated. And when you combine that with missing Jerry Jacobs, in week 7, of course, Mosley's already out for the year, so Jacobs is essentially starting in his place, with Cam Sutton on the other side. It was a toxic mix for the Lions last week. Is that going to be recreated every week? No, it's certainly not. But what we're going to try to do in this video is first illustrate the lack of athleticism on the other edge rusher position opposite Aiden Hutchinson, who I think has 4.5 sacks, and how glaring that need becomes against really athletic quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson. Of course, you're not going to face, Lions fans obviously know, they're not going to face a super athletic quarterback on Monday Night Football in Week 8 against the Raiders, regardless of who plays. One more thing to talk about, even preceding the Ravens game, but I'm going to combine that in this statistic here. The last 3 weeks, Ravens, Bucks, and Panthers in reverse order, the entire Lions team has generated 2 sacks and 11 quarterback hits. I do have some thoughts on how that issue can be addressed, and there's 3-pronged. Schematic suggestions, being a little more versatile, and in some cases, being a little less scared. Because I thought that the calls on the first 2 possessions against the Ravens were very vanilla and conservative, and I thought that Greg Olsen and the announcers did a great job of talking about how much space there was for the receivers to get off in free releases. Second point will be about personnel, meaning deployment. Who's on the field? Where are they? And then the third thing I think is what probably a lot of fans talked about a lot this week is personnel in terms of front office, which is I'm going to spend less time on because, yes, you go out there and get Brian Burns, you fix the issue. Absolutely. But that's not the type of thing that every front office is going to be willing to do at the last second. You do have other guys out there, James Houston IV, that can fill the need on the other side, but there still may not just be enough depth. The film's going to be organized in this video to first illustrate the issue, so I think the first couple of minutes is not going to be fun. And then I'll show examples of what I think Aaron Glenn could do more of leading into the Week 8 game at home against the Raiders in a couple of days, bye week, and then Chargers, followed by 2 divisional games. These next 4 games are all extremely winnable, and there's no reason why the Lions defense can't return to form in terms of shutting down or slowing down the run game and not exposing yourself to big pass plays while still going out of your way to make it a point to try to get pressure on the quarterback. And I'll show you at least 3 stunts that Aaron Glenn has run this year that have been successful, and I think he needs to run more often. All right, so let's get into the film. Certainly containing the quarterback has been an issue in particular weeks. Week 2 against the Seahawks I thought Mahomes did a nice job in week 1, 3 or 4 times of getting outside the pocket. And then, of course, Lamar Jackson caused a lot of trouble last week. This first one's the 2nd and 20. The organic 4-man rushes, in my opinion, with the personnel that Aaron Glenn has generally deployed opposite Aiden Hutchinson, have just not worked. Whether it's Charles Harris, Romeo Okwara, Josh Paschal, who returned from injury last week, when you combine one of those guys on the other side with Aiden Hutchinson and then 1 or 2 D tackles, and I like John Kaminsky in there in some of these pass rush situations. Like I said, this is a 2nd and 20. It hasn't been enough, in my opinion, in terms of the other guy generating some type of force, either a speed rush that wins off the edge, forces the quarterback to step up here. I think Kaminsky ends up sliding over the top too far, and or McNeil is supposed to bend back into that open space that Geno Smith ran onto. I'll only show you this one once because I'm sure it's difficult to watch as Lions fans, but I think it illustrates the point. The lack of ability to get to the quarterback, number one, and then the tactical decisions to not recognize that you're dealing with a supremely athletic quarterback like Lamar Jackson, and having a QB spy is essentially playing 10 on 11, which is what Mike Tomlin said in Week 5 or prior to Week 5 against the Ravens. Week 1 earlier this year, not to be critical of the personnel the entire time, but there, and I'll say this once and then again at the end, clearly there's got to be some type of look by the front office at going and finding a complement to Aiden Hutchinson on the other side. Additionally, more usage of a pass rush group, which I'll show here in a moment, in terms of maybe putting Aiden Hutchinson inside or kicking Charles Harris down inside and using a speed guy off the edge. The lack of speed on the other side has been an issue during the season. And I think a lot, what I think personally is due to a lot of it, James Houston IV not being there, because he is that speed rusher, the guy who you can give the hard-coded rush to on the opposite side. Now, let's talk about some tactical decisions, and I'm going to show you a little bit of film of how the Pittsburgh Steelers have defended Lamar Jackson in the past. You've got an RPO here, and Aiden Hutchinson is doing what you should do as an outside linebacker, DN, edge player. If your tackle goes away and the running back crosses your face, you go with him. That's the fundamental way to play this. Block down, step down. He's running with the back, forcing a keep read by Lamar. If this quarterback is Jimmy Garoppolo or Jordan Love or whoever else you've faced so far on your schedule or will face this year, that's the right thing to do. I will tell you what the Pittsburgh Steelers do with TJ Watt. And this is why, actually, at sometimes the Ravens have stopped running option plays to his side. They will run TJ Watt directly at Lamar Jackson's outside shoulder, and he'll make contact with Lamar Jackson every time. What is that? It's a give read. You've eliminated the option. It is basically a give. And now you have to live with the result of the play. I'm not saying that's what Aaron Glenn should have done. That is another option that you could do, and it's not a pass play. Well, it technically is a pass play because it's an RPO, but it is a way to get pressure on the quarterback and get hands on him. Not a drop back pass, not a 3rd and 11 pressure that we would typically associate with getting in the quarterback's face, making life difficult for him. But when the Ravens are going to give you option looks, and you have the running back to your side, which is what Aiden Hutchinson has here, you're the read man on a particular option concept. Now, when the running back is in the pistol and set further behind the quarterback, then you may not know because it could be to your side, it could be away from your side. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense. So let's look at a game from last year, and Lamar Jackson is not playing. And I want you to notice what TJ Watt does on this option play. This is what we would call 5-and-5 option. The quarterback's path means you're going 5-and-5 in a 10-game season. I guess, talking NFL, he's 7-and-10. TJ Watt is going directly at the running back, forcing a keep read, which is the same thing that Aiden Hutchinson just did. But notice who's not on the field. Lamar Jackson is not on the field. That's Tyler Huntley. Because Tyler Huntley doesn't represent the same run threat that Lamar Jackson does. If the Ravens ran this same play and Lamar Jackson was at quarterback, TJ Watt's path would not be so flat like this. His path would be directly at the outside portion of the quarterback's body to force a give read, and he would make contact with Lamar Jackson, thus reducing the number of times that Lamar can keep the football and run around the edge by 2 or 3 or 4 over the course of a game. However many times the offensive coordinator chose to run option plays against the Steelers, TJ Watt was going to force a give read and limit Lamar's options. Last point in terms of schematic thoughts, and this is somewhat personnel based, and I'm a big fan of Jack Campbell, but I don't think he played well as a boundary side edge defender at all. The Lions have been kind of forced into it because of the injuries. Clearly on this bootleg play on a 4th and 1, he's probably not going to make the tackle anyway because the Ravens are pulling Ronnie Stanley out here. Kaminsky is doing the same thing Aiden Hutchinson did, running down the line of scrimmage with his key, which is the fundamental way to do it. Unfortunately, Jack Campbell is going to go as well, and when Lamar boots, it's a 2-on-0, basically, as opposed to what could be a 2-on-1 if Campbell was there. I'm not sure that Campbell and Joseph are going to stop Lamar from getting the first down. Remember, it's a 4th and 1. But schematically or tactically, I guess, you would not want Jack Campbell to just fly out of there. That, to me, speaks to the lack of edge depth that you have a player over there. And I think Jack Campbell's going to be a fantastic football player. I really like his game at inside linebacker. You don't want him playing edge defender in these situations if he's going to react like that in a game. Some of these game situations are labeled. This is obviously week 1 against the Chiefs. It's a 3rd and 5. I'm going to show you some organic 4-man rushes, and you'll get a sense of when there's a speed rusher opposite Hutchinson, things can get accomplished. In this case, I think it's Kaminsky on this 3rd and 5, ends up tackling Mahomes right near the line of scrimmage. You actually get a rush upfield by Harris that is effective, if you ask me, in terms of forcing Mahomes to step up into the pocket, into the internal pressure, at least by Kaminsky. In my opinion, you have too many situations where there's an imbalance in the rush, meaning Hutchinson is establishing something upfield and the other side is not, and therefore there's no reason for the quarterback to have to step up into that internal pressure in the first place. You additionally get a lot of situations like this out of your man free, and I think this coverage hurt Aaron Glenn against the Ravens. Man free with a 4-man rush, a low hole dropper, a middle of the field free safety. That situation, that coverage, I think has burned the Lions in terms of quarterback scrambles multiple times this year. Now, in this case, Anzalone, because he's the low hole dropper, he's a bonus player. When Mahomes starts to move out of the pocket, Anzalone is able to go get him, get a quarterback hit, and force an incompletion to at least get you to 3rd down. Too often it ends up just being Hutchinson, if you ask me, who's trying to get something accomplished, even though you've got Harris attempting to get his way pushed upfield. And this is the situation that I see happening more often, where quarterbacks either, if they try to get flushed, if they try to move out to their right, Hutchinson is there to deal with them in some manner, maybe a sack, maybe a quarterback pressure, or in this case, force an incompletion. But as you saw from the first play that I showed you by Geno Smith, and 2 of the ones from Mahomes, if the quarterback generally scrambles to the left, to their left, the Lions' defense is right, there's oftentimes space to move through. I do think that there's more opportunity for switch blitzes or stunts like these. These are very basic, obviously. At least it gives the guys a chance and puts the offensive line in some conflict. I didn't think that the Lions did enough of this against the Ravens in week 7 at all. So what I'm describing is the D tackles getting upfield, and then the D ends or outside linebackers folding inside, folding underneath of those upfield rushes, essentially recreating a 4-man rush like you would normally have, but letting the D tackles get on their tracks. If you're going to have defensive tackles on the field that are big, powerful guys, I think some of those stunts is the way to go. Also, pass rush groupings. Described it earlier. We've now got 2 edge rushers on the same side. Jack Campbell, who I don't think is a natural pass rusher from a collegiate situation or collegiate position standpoint. But at least you're getting more athletes on the field in a passing situation. I think it's a 2nd and 10 late in the game. To me, 2nd and long, there needed to be more times where Kaminsky is on at D tackle, someone else is on as an edge rusher with Aiden Hutchinson, and put him where you need him in terms of the best matchup. In this case, it appeared to be against the Falcons left guard as he gets a strip sack that basically finishes the game. Another pass rush group from week 1. Hutchinson is lined up as an interior rusher here, next to James Houston, who's your speed rusher, and then Harris and Kaminsky to the other side. If you want to talk about personnel that you could go acquire, absolutely there's guys that are out there that could fix the issue or at least give Aaron Glenn more options. Until such time that someone else is acquired, I think you've got to have more usage of these pass rush groups. Get more athletic guys on the field in passing situations. And if you give up some run defense on a 2nd and 7, on some level, you kind of have to live with that. Another element that I think played a role on Sunday that I'm not sure if it'll show up each week is the Ravens' ability to keep the Lions' base defense on the field, which speaks to personnel. You see here that you've got your base 3-4 look with Tracy Walker rolled up into the box. And then what the Ravens were doing out of it, I thought multiple times, was going 21 personnel. We've got Ricard and the tight end Andrews on the field with the tailback, and then throwing the football. Taking advantage of that base personnel by throwing the ball over the top of the second level in front of the safety level because we've got 8 guys in the box. So basically eliciting a look from the Lions and then taking advantage of that look by doing the opposite. It's a very simplistic way for me to explain it, but I thought it was a factor in Sunday's game, and I think in some of these situations where the ball is on the negative 8-yard line and the offense is 92 yards away from scoring, I want Brian Branch on the field. I'm a huge fan of Brian Branch. Certainly if there's 3 tight ends on the field, or you think it's a run concept, then you don't want your nickel defense on the field consistently. I think there's a time and place to have that discussion. I'm not sure if it's before Week 8 against the Raiders or not. There were some times where the Lions tried to bring stunts and it just didn't work out in their favor. Here's one of them. It's a 3rd and 7. I think the Ravens offensive line does a great job of picking this blitz up. Having said that, what this does, at least for Aiden Hutchinson, in my opinion, is frees him up to go ahead and make a great pass rush move because he knows there's a bunch of stuff going on in here that's going to occupy people. Basically, he's got a one-on-one, and he knew that he was going to get a one-on-one. A couple of more examples of a similar stunt to the one I just showed you against the Ravens. Week 1, it's a 3rd and 5. I believe it's going to be an incomplete pass. I think that Aaron Glenn needs to do a little bit more of dropping guys out. In this case, you can see that I think it's Pascal who's dropping out to get in the window between either of these defenders. Now, pre-snap, and then right as the ball is snapped, Pascal doesn't know exactly where that's going to be, but generally these guys are reading the quarterback's eyes, or maybe they're responding to some type of route that they can see to their outside. But in any case, you can see what it's done. It's, again, given Aiden Hutchinson a one-on-one, and then at least try to create some chaos for these guys to sift through, to work through, to give them an opportunity. If you're talking about your D tackles or inside linebackers who generally aren't going to win in one-on-one pass rush situations, absent acquiring anyone who's just a better pass rusher than some of the other guys you have, Aaron Glenn's going to have to do some of this stuff like this. Essentially zone blitz people, drop someone out to try to get in a window and force the quarterback's decision-making to be delayed by the pressure, number one, and number two, by worrying about who's dropping out. Same game, 3rd and 8. Exact same stunt. Gets a quarterback hit, ends up being a catch down the field. We'll give the end zone angle so you can see the nature of the stunt. A little bit different because Rodriguez is going opposite the stunt here, but what it does is it creates the one-on-one for Aiden Hutchinson through the use of all the movement and stunting to the other side. Pascal, instead of dropping out, is the guy looping around and ends up getting a quarterback hit, although it does end up going as a conversion. All right, I really like this one because it's a It's blitzing Brian Branch. Now, you do need him in coverage oftentimes because he's a great coverage guy. But I like the unpredictability of it. Oh, by the way, this one almost leads to a housed interception by Kirby Joseph. Unfortunately for Lions fans, he didn't catch it, but he typically does. I think that more variability has got to be utilized. And early in the game against the Ravens, I felt like Aaron Glenn was way too vanilla. It took till that third possession, the stunt that I showed you, before he finally tried to unveil some things to get pressure on Lamar, get the ball out of his hands quick, and or make him have to worry about at least someone being near him. The tactical decision on the option plays, like I showed you, to run with the running back, meaning Lamar could keep the ball, and no one was touching him, no one was fronting him up, and the lack of pressure early on, I think kind of like was a snowball effect for this Lions defense. I don't know that it'll be recreated against the Raiders, but you will face athletic quarterbacks in the playoffs. Additionally, stunting doesn't mean that you can't stop the run. I'll show you this play again from the All-22, but you've got off screen to our left, a blitz by the nickel on a 2nd and 10. Hutchinson stunting inside, so the running back bounces it outside. Barnes and Branch are there for the easy tackle for loss. So All-22 one more time. That's Branch on the blitz late. Very similar to the one that I just showed you down near the end zone. Don't have to do it all the time. I didn't see a lot of coverage variability early tagged with blitzes against the Ravens. Against the Raiders, again, I don't know how much of that you need. In terms of containing the quarterback, here's a switch blitz that ends up working out on a 3rd and 6 in week 2. A whole lot better than 2 of the other scrambles you got in the 3rd and 4th quarter. So what I mean when I say switch blitz is Harris is dropping out as a D end, and then one of the inside linebackers is blitzing. So basically what's happening is, coverage-wise, Rodriguez is able to go and take over Anzalone's place. Harris is able to drop back. These lines aren't exactly drawn in where they go, but conceptually that's what we're talking about. And then Anzalone is able to blitz. You're still creating a 4-man rush, but some unpredictability for the offensive line to deal with. And again, I didn't see enough of that, particularly early in the game against the Ravens. I'm not sure if the speed of Lamar and the receivers took Aaron Glenn and the coaching staff by surprise, but the lack of pass rush, the lack of creativity in the stunts, and willingness to use the stunts, to be honest with you, I think was a big factor. You guys let me know what you think of some of the thoughts that I have here in terms of utilizing stunts, having a more dedicated pass rush group with or without anyone else being acquired by the front office. Because I don't think you can go out there and just do generic 4-man rushes and expect some of these guys to win in these pass rush situations where they have not done so through 7 weeks. Aiden Hutchinson has. Last one, this is actually a 3-man rush, which a lot of people have criticized me before for talking about. Hutchinson is going to drop out. And a D tackle is going to drop out. So really it's a 2-man rush, which I wouldn't advocate for all the time. But I do advocate for 3-man rushes to be used at times. If you can get in windows, force quarterbacks to throw the ball underneath like you just saw. I'm not sure what the Lions front office's willingness is to go out and get another edge rusher. But to me, one of the guys that's out there that I think can have a huge impact for any team trying to make a playoff push or improve their roster is Brian Burns. He's one of the most explosive pass rushers on inside moves, speed rushes, outside moves that I've had film of in the last 2 or 3 years, and just consistently impacts opposing teams' passing games to the point where he can single-handedly destroy it at times. I will tell you that the Ravens dealing with him last year was no fun at all when Carolina came to Baltimore late in the season and really gave our offense problems. And I know that he's got a jersey switch, so he's not number 53 anymore. If you're a Lions fan and you're looking at a quick fix in terms of talent level, this guy's it. Now, the price tag was supposedly really high last year. Don't think it's going to be that high this year because no one was willing to pay it. But this is a dude who will get to the quarterback, who will force fumbles. And if you put him opposite Aiden Hutchinson, you've got elite level speed rush capability and inside moves on both sides of your defensive line, which the Lions, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, just currently do not have as it stands week 8 of 2023. You guys let me know what you think of some of my thoughts as we develop through the video, talking about tactical decisions that Aaron Glenn and Dan Campbell made last week in dealing with Lamar Jackson and the option game. Schematic choices, the blitzes that they did or did not run. Of course, the coverages were limited with Jerry Jacobs not being available, and thankfully he's back at practice this week from what I hear. And then the personnel options in terms of front office going out and acquiring someone like a Brian Burns or anyone else. I think the Lions defense is going to respond for a lot of reasons. Number one, they're very well coached. Number two, it's a lot of tough-minded dudes on that side of the ball in Detroit. Additionally, you're not facing as athletic a quarterback. They're going to be trying to get the ball out quick, particularly in the hands of Devontae Adams. I'm going to have a preview out for this game, hopefully Saturday morning. If you guys would like to give me any suggestions on what to cover, I have 2 elements that I'm definitely going to cover in detail. But I appreciate you guys' time. Let me know what you think of the video in the comment section. If you think other Lions fans would enjoy this look at potential ways to fix or address Detroit's defensive issues, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.